Second round of the VWSC NRAS Championship here in southern central Florida at the historic Sebring circuit. We're coming to you live on both the CMS and JPB YouTube channels. And in the commentary box this evening, it is myself, Darragh Thacker, and James Parfitt alongside me. And James, Sebring, it's a very different track to the last round that we had at Daytona, of course. Very different surface. We've not gone very far, just across Florida. But this could be a very interesting race. 2, maybe 3 stops for all of the cars here.
Yeah, it's going to be on the border. They're going to be basically whether or not they're going to be able to fuel save enough to make it to the 2. The GT3s we think should be okay, but it's whether or not they can manage that last little bit. Hypercars, that's going to be a close one. It depends on how much saving they're going to be able to do to basically make that work. So we're looking at 2 to 3, but it's Sebring. It's an old airfield. It's bumpy, and if you've got dentures, you make sure you got your cream on, because otherwise your teeth's going to be rattling that much here before you go on. So yeah, going to be an exciting one, going to be an interesting one, and I think overall it's going to be exciting.
Going at 5
yeah, I mean,
minutes
we were
to go.
talking about this just pre-race, that we had a bit of splash and dash going on, didn't we, last time out at Daytona, so we might have the same here this evening. You can see the track on your screen, of course. 17 historic bends, many corners that, you know, could lend itself to overtaking. You think at Sunset at the final corner, and even turn 1 and up towards turn 3, there are some good places where you can make overtakes here, and we're going to see quite a lot of that, I think.
Yeah, I think you might be right, to be fair. You know, they've got 3.7 miles of circuits to contend with. Down the Ormond from 60 to 17 round Sunset, they've got to be the places to be looking out to. You can make a dive at 1, but you've got to be brave. You've got the run from Big Bend, which is turn 6 through to turn 7. As we're looking at the car, you can't actually just see that there, but if you have a look there on the right-hand side, there's actually a car on its... I'm not even sure what it's doing, but it's on its side there as well. But yeah, it's going to be exciting, and that is what we've got coming up for the rest of the season.
It's a nice looking calendar, isn't it? We're here at Sebring. Of course, we've had a long break away. I believe it was 9 weeks between Daytona and here at Sebring. But the races start to come a little bit thicker and a little bit faster, don't they? Long Beach in, I believe that's 3 weeks' time. And Laguna Seca about 3 weeks after that as well. So the races start to come relatively quickly, and some good circuits as well. You look at the likes of Detroit, Watkins Glen, I mean, even towards the end of the season, Indianapolis and Road Atlanta. But we're at this part of the season, of course, very early on. You kind of want to position yourself well, don't you? Especially when you get towards Long Beach and Laguna Seca, because they can be some very hectic races.
Yeah, I do like the fact that there's all American circuits, and then they chucked in Mosport. You know, Canadian Tire kind of title and where it is in the name there. I'm sure Ross will be able to tell us all about that when we have a chat with him at the moment. Tyres, mediums, medium hards, wets. Well, if it's going to be wet, it's going to be an exciting one. I can tell you that much here, but it's going to be an interesting. I think Sebring is always going to bring the main racing coming up. You know, you can see some of the challenges, mixed fuel strategy, make the tyres last, cross-category cooperation. Well, we've spoken about that many times, and I've had a very nice little meeting with Ross and George Angelidis and others to chat about that. So I think that coming up could be an exciting one. Now, we've got the scores. Obviously, can't look too much into him at the moment, Darragh, because we are only on race 1 as we start with a GT3 AM.
Yeah, of course, this is just the results from round 1 at Daytona, and it's Josh McGlinskey who leads the way. Stephen Miller and Oliver Day in tow. Again, all of the drivers, they will be chasing away. A few of the drivers near the back, maybe not having the best of opening rounds, the likes of Alexander McQuarrie and James Sodas down there. They might be looking getting a few more positions, but like you said, only the 1 round. So, you know, take these results with a pinch of salt. Of course, good starts to the season, I should say, for the likes of Josh McGlinskey. There and here in the LMGT3 Pro category, we've got Eliso Neto leading the way, JC Tammy as well. There were some good performances last week, particularly that we saw from a lot of these guys, and we'll have to see if they can carry that on into round 2. Ross Smith, you can see down there in P14. I'm sure he'll be looking for some more points here this evening. But loads of drivers in there, the likes of Santos up in P3, Locke in 4th, James Walker 5th. So Lots of guys who I think will be looking to work their way up the order this evening. George Andalidis leads the way in the Hypercar AM category. Jerry Chen and Diego Rodrigo second and third. Felipe Ducati, Gilles Lalonde and Guillaume Benke are in the top 6. We had a few non-finishers there as well, so a few guys who are looking to boost their way up in terms of the points. And then in the Hypercar Pro category, not too many drivers. Very easy to see. Dan Kirby leading the way. Alec King, Franco Alvarez currently in the top 3. Then it's Mike Bell, Brian Hill, Adrian Rice, and Kyle Vaser. Didn't start at Daytona, but again, points to be won, I think, really, James, isn't it? Because early stage of the season, it's a relatively long season. We're looking at 10 plus rounds of racing, so a lot of these guys, they've got a little bit of time if they didn't have the best of starts.
Yeah, that's the thing. You're only on round 1. So what we've shown you is literally just the results out of round 1, right? And to be honest, I don't think you can read anything into round 1. Yeah, you're great, you're finished, you're amazing, well done for you, and happy days, give yourself a clap on the back. But at the end of the day, when it comes to it, round 1's quite irrelevant, and I think going forward we'll worry about it by the time we get further in on the calendar. Maybe look at Motorsport as made a turning point in the calendar where we think, actually, hold on a minute, these results have got to be a little bit more serious now. They've got to start working away. And that's the thing, it's always tough. But I tell you what we'll do, while we've got a brief moment and break in proceedings, let's have a chat with me good buddy, Mr. Smith, as we've got 6 minutes of the warm-up left. Mr. Smith, welcome in, dear sir. How are you?
Good evening. Good evening from JVB and from CMS. Thanks for having me.
No dramas at all, mate. How's things been for you out there on the circuit during this wonderful event? Obviously, we have waited 9 weeks, as Dara said, between the first one and the second one. There's a big old long break between round 1 and round 2.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's been a lot going on. It's trying to follow the real series, the real IMSA series, so just kind of keeping in touch with that. It's part of the reason why. We've also got to try and balance things alongside our sister series going on between the historics that are running with VWSC and the modern series for VWSC. Lots of things going on there, and of course George Angelidis likes to make sure that things are in line with the real world events too, so that's why it took so long to get here, but we're here now.
Yeah, we are. You're in the Lamborghini. Nice looking cockpit, by the way, as well. How's everything going with the 2024 mods?
They're going okay. We're behind schedule on what we want to get going here because we've just had a lot of admin duties that we've been keeping up with. There have been a few things that we've had to get initiated for next year's historics. So that sort of has also delayed us. We just, we have to take a look at where we're at, make sure that we're getting on top of things the way we need to, and move on from there. But I can tell you personally that I will be getting into a lot of the graphical updates within the next few weeks, and you should be seeing those rolling in as we go into the next rounds. Probably not for this Sebring on the weekend coming up, but from there on out, yeah, they're going to be rolling in hot and heavy.
You mentioned the historics. Can I just ask one question? And I would really, I would really like it, right, if you could just say to me yes or no on this one. Actually, you need to say 2 other words, but it's not yes or no. Where we're at now, 64, are we going towards 2000s or are we going back towards the 50s?
Yes or no?
No, forward or back?
Well, that's not what you said.
I know, but I want forward or back.
Oh. Well, that would kind of give it away, wouldn't it?
Oh, no, because there's a lot that goes on forward and there's a lot that goes on behind.
So I guess for that, I will just have to say yes.
Oh! Even when I try and put it in a different way, still on the ball here is Mr. Smith, I tell you. It's never good. I might get it early one time. One time. We'll get it before the end, but I doubt it very much. But I'm looking forward to wherever we go. And to be honest, the 64 series is absolutely amazing. But this NARS series is going to be kicking off here. What do we think, Mr. Smith? Where are you going to be in your Lamborghini Huracan, of course?
Well, me personally, I'm just going to survive because Sebring is always cursed for me. I'm hoping my team is going to do okay. Josh is pretty well out there. We have a Lambras Lamborghini coalition between the different Lamborghini teams, so we're working together there. Hopefully, our work will give us something to combat the others in the field. GT side, obviously, a ton of GTs making up the majority of the field. Hypercars are going to be pretty wild. Alec King's very hot. Daniel Kirby, I didn't see if he made it in time, but I know he's suffering from a twisted ankle, so that's going to definitely keep him a little handicapped. And there was someone else who had a busted shoulder, but I don't think they're running on Thursday. I think it's on one of the guys on the Tom Lane team. Might even be Tom himself. But yeah, lots going on, lots of dramas already, and it should do nothing but make for some wild racing.
Okay, mate. Well, after giving me little or no information, the out of theirs in YouTube chat has just put ha ha ha. Yeah, I try, mate. I do try every time. And I've even tried wording it in a different way. I don't know really how else I can put it to try and sneak something out of him regarding next season's historic. It kills me every time. But Ross, thanks so much for joining us there, buddy. You haven't got long left of the warm-up. You've got about a minute and a half. I'm sure you don't want me talking in your ear hole continuously while you're there. So I better let you go. Have a good one, bud. And we'll catch up with you, hopefully, in Victory Lane.
Well, that would be amazing. But I'm sure I'll talk to you guys again, at least on Saturday. And
Okay,
look forward to that. And look forward to you guys having a really good broadcast. Thank you so much for everything you do.
No worries, man. You take care. So there you go, Darragh. I try with him, and he literally gives me nothing. Not even a snip of information.
I mean, I on that historic series, because I swear I saw someone from JPB talk about the fact that the next race was only 2 or 3 laps because the track was so long. And I even watched some of the season race here a couple of weeks ago, and it was fantastic because the track, of course, is so different to what it is now. And yeah, it's great with all the different elements of VWSC, isn't it? With all the different categories and all the different classes. Every week there's something different, isn't there?
Oh, the modding. What Ross and Nat does, the out there said 3 laps. Yeah, it is going to be 3 laps. What Ross and his crew do is incredible. The mods is just absolutely amazing. And I think it's very, very interesting to see what they're doing with it. It's absolutely incredible in this series, this modding world that we don't that most people don't get to see. That they're looking back and thinking, it's only this, is that. There's a lot of effort that goes into this, so much effort, and these guys just do an absolute incredible job. And I think that there's got to be props for it. There's got to be props, and it is big props to Ross and his crew and George at Storm Gang here, because of the amount of work they put in. You wouldn't find that amount of work anywhere else, really, in conjunction with other people's series, especially in the modding scene in R Factor. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it's always fun to watch, isn't it? Regularly, where we have all the different series, all the different tracks, and there's loads of different things that all of these guys do. But we're still in a warm-up session now here at Sebring, of course, with the 4 categories that we've got, or the 4 classes, you could say, with the 2 hypercars, the pro and the 2 the GT3s for the pros and the AMs. It kind of creates a bit of an element where some of the GT3 AMs are going to be fighting with the pros, same with the hypercars. And we saw it at Daytona a little bit, where they kind of trip over themselves a bit, and you get that element of drivers questioning whether they want to overtake the drivers in front, because they're your race in theory, in a big picture, but for the actual championship they're not. And I think at Sebring it's tight around here, isn't it? We might see quite a bit of that.
Yeah, I think we will, but you've got to look at what you're looking at early on. We spoke about it a little bit briefly on the scores, right? We were to be honest, we were probably a little bit nonchalant on the scores itself, because we probably didn't give them the rights that they deserved. But at the end of the day, we are only at round 1, and I think if anybody of these are battling away in the AMs and the pros, they're not going to want to give up yet. You're only on round 1, and you're going to want to fight. And I think it's going to be, between the Pro-Ams, there's a good mix. There's a mixture of pace, there's a mixture of speed between these guys. And I think any one of these could be above anybody else. It's multi-class racing. That's what we see. That's what we expect. And at the end of the day, that's what we get. You know, anybody can win it. I've seen it in multiple series where there's been AMs above the pros, and it's just the way it is. And I think going forward, they will be careful, and they'll start to be careful, don't get me wrong, but they've got to start on the right foot to be careful, and that's not going to be it's not going to be this race. It won't be round two. There said 37 to 45 minute laps. Yes, I'm looking at the track map of the next race in the Historics. We're off to Targo Florio. And, well, it's going to be an interesting one. But we'll see. We can get the grid up for you now, and we'll be able to see who took pole and who's leading where.
So it was Dan Kirby, who of course won back in Daytona, who will take the pole position here for round two at Sebring. Alec King alongside him. Ben Kesby is P3 on the second row as we look back to the third row. Jerry Chen and Don Hunter 5 and 6. Wayne Galvin and Brian Hall in the top 8. A couple of pros and amateurs mixing themselves up there on the opening 4 rows. We've got Mike Bell in P9. Raff in 10th. Scar Pope and George Angelidis make up the 6th row on the grid. Scarpe, a fantastic name. Sounds like a bit of an Italian mafia one. But anyway, Lanny Hall, P13. Jerry Hamilton, P14, with Mateus Santos in 15th and Eugene Mazza in P16, the 097 car. Aston Martin going from the 8th row. Johnny Gutierrez and Matthew Overton in P17 and 18, with Michael Locke and John Uyan in 19th and 20th. As we roll on through there, the opening 10 rows, but you can see back there's many more cars to come. Max Sutton Lap in P21, Paul Ibbotson in 22nd, with JT Tammy and Stuart Barge in P23 and 24. JT Tammy will be hoping to recover through the field after his good race last time out. Eric Jacobs P25, with Ryan Reyes P26. Stephen Miller and Josh McGlinskey, of course, championship leader in that GT3 AM category. He'll start P3 in class, I do believe. Then it's Alan Holden and Adrian Rice in the top 30. James Walker and Gilles Lalonde in P32. A Hypercar will be having to make his way through quite a lot of the GT3 cars. Then we look further back. It's John Mayer and Vinicius Gonçalves in P33 and 34. Tom Nacella and David Anderson in the top 36. As we keep rolling on through with all of these cars on the grid. James Boders, P37, and Ross Smith will line up P38. We'll see where he can go from there. Stacey Scotts and Sean Kelly on the 20th row of the grid in P39 and 40, but the cars do come on. Only 2 more. Alessio Neto, he'll be hoping to recover. Of course, he won the race in the GT3 Pros last time out, and Alexander McQuinski, I think that was, in P42. 42 cars in the grid. James, a lot can happen with 42 cars, and around Sebring, particularly around the opening sector, it can get tight, it can get tetchy. We saw it in real life in the IMSA series. There, some comings together. We might see the same this evening.
Oh, I think your terminology of might is a little bit of an understatement of what we are going to see, and I think going forward it's going to be a very interesting race at Sebring. There, I think they're just got to hold on to their hats. They've got to just make sure that they've got everything right. You've got time, but you don't want to do anything stupid within that time. Do you know what I mean? And obviously you've got the orange zone here that runs all the way through to the exit of turn 7, so they've got to be careful. They can make overtakes, but any penalties will be a lot harsher if they cause any accidents during that sequence of corners. So I think going forward is just use your brain, traffic. I was going to say manage your traffic, and get through cleanly, because otherwise there's going to be a lot happening, and you don't want that going on for you. You just want to make sure you can get through cleanly for the next hour and 20 minutes here. Otherwise, it's just all going to go a little bit Pete Tong, and that is the worst thing you want here, Dara, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots that can go. We talked about this last time, really, didn't we? That it's kind of between that sprint race distance and that endurance race distance. It's kind of in a weird middle ground where no one really knows how to race. The first half an hour or so, you're thinking, okay, got to make sure I'm in the right position, not doing anything silly. But then you realise, oh, I've only got 40 minutes of the race to go. Got to get a move on. So we'll have to see how that all plays out. They'll get onto the Allman Straight now. Still got a corner to go, but, you know, an hour and 12 minutes of this race. If we're looking at even maybe 3 stops for the hypercars, they're not going to be doing much more than 20 minutes for a stint, if that.
25 you might get. 25 they are going to be touching on. So that's why we said it's going to be very, very close in conjunction with it here. And, you know, they've just got to be mindful of what's going on. Please be mindful of what you're doing, because otherwise it could just go completely Pete Tong and then you are in trouble. But I'm sure these guys will be a little bit sensible as they're looking at coming around to start this evening's of racing off.
Yeah, through Sunset Curve. Of course, the sun will set. It will get dark in this race over the next hour and 11 minutes. But Dan Kirby, he leads the championship after the opening round. He's looking to extend it further here at Sebring, waiting for the lights to come on and then go out there single file across the line. Dan Kirby will be hoping to control the line. But as we come across the line, we're about to go green flag racing, and there we go. Dan Kirby sets us off here at Sebring, down towards the opening corner. King will just slot in behind. No one really able to make a move into the opening corner as Dan Kirby controls the line. Not the best of runs through the opening corner, though, as we might see a bit of a move through turn 2. But in the background, we see maybe 2 wide in the mid-pack for the Hypercar AM category, but they run through this opening sector. Dan Kirby very clearly in the lead, and Alec King, he's going to have to find a way through somewhere, but he has to sit in behind for P2 for now.
Yeah, Alec King's just got to sit back as they're on that run down through Big Ben, down into the hairpin at turn 7. Underneath the bridge they go. They're going to be looking for the braking markers. There they are. Obviously, if you drive other simulators, you know there's cones on the left-hand side there, not distance boards. So if you've come from cones and you're taking part in a special event on the Sebring 12 hours this weekend, you know, be aware that it's got to change. But as we're on board with Alec King, trying to catch up with Dan Kirby, if he's done anything to his feet, it clearly wasn't enough to slow the kid down. You know what I mean? Dan Kirby reportedly has hurt his ankle or broke something. But yeah, he's still out there driving as if nothing happened.
Yeah, he's doing all right for himself at the moment as we get on this opening lap, and it hasn't really held him up too heavily. Alicio Neto here, I believe may have started a little bit higher up than the grid may have suggested, because that is saying he's currently in P16, which is much more in the ballpark of where he would have to start, of course, after having a very good race there. You can see leading that GT3 train on the back of the hypercars. So good start for Alicio Neto. He's got Santos right in behind him, but yeah, I was worried for him slightly when I saw him lining up right at the back of the field, but I think he's going to be much happier to be up in P16.
Yeah, it's obviously for him, he's got a great job. There must have been an error on, obviously, the system when we brought the grid up there. But I want to keep an eye on how Mr. Smith's getting on. He didn't go out and qualify, so he's chasing down Dave Anderson. Smith in the Lamborghini Huracan there, and Anderson in front in the Ferrari 296 GT3. I do like the Lambo. The Lambo does look a very nice car, and it's just got something about it with the Lamborghini. It just looks beautiful. I think that's the word that I can use here, and I think it does an absolutely stellar job. It looks like we may have lost Wayne Galvin, who may have gone off the side of the circuit. Let's see if we can catch up what's happened to Wayne as he has DNF'd. I'm just wondering if he's gone out here.
Let's have a look at the replay.
He's in
maybe
the
just
pits.
possible his connection issue, maybe, possibly.
Yeah, it seems
It's a bit of
weird.
an interesting, well, not the ideal start to the race, that's for sure. Well, and end to the race, I guess, as he will presumably not be taking any further part. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that looks very much like some kind of tech issue.
Yeah, I think so there as well. I'm not totally sure why Mr. Galvin's DNF'd, but he has DNF'd right at the beginning. So, yeah, interesting spread of cars, interesting splits at the moment. Hour 7 minutes on the clock. Kirby in the Hypercars, Chen in the Hypercar AMS, 4 seconds over Graf. GT3's 1.4, McQuarrie over Reyes in the GT3 AMS 2.1. So, yeah, a little bit of a spread already here.
I think Jerry Chen is being helped by the fact that overall he is in P5. He is ahead of Don Hunter, as I think that was Alec King dropping down
into the pits.
order. Into the pit lane, yeah, I thought so, and I was just making sure on the timing screen there, but he's into the pit lane early on, seemingly probably committing to that 3-stop then. Maybe trying to get out of a bit of traffic early, undercutting Kirby. We'll see how that all works out. But I was going to mention that Chen has got 3 cars between himself and Norm Graf, who is, of course, second in the Hypercar AM category. So a good qualifying position is really kind of helping him out, because he doesn't need to fight those drivers behind him, but they're acting as a bit of a buffer at the moment.
Yeah, they're almost his blanket. You know, you're giving him that comfort that you're behind him. And that's what you've just got for him. He's got to enjoy. However, we have just lost one of him as well, as I believe that may have been Don Hunter has just gone off there, and it was Don. He's just gone off the side of the circuit, coming round into turn 7, the hairpin at the end of the big bend there. So great racing going on. McQuarrie, Neto, Chen and Kirby, your leaders so far, and McQuarrie's just done his best lap time last time out on a 2:04.399. So yeah, great battling, great pace, great action, and I think, to be honest, even though they're more spread out than I was probably expecting this early on, I think, to be honest with you, Dara, they're going to come back together eventually.
Yeah, and lots of strategies, I think, are going to meet in the middle towards the end of this race. We're looking at Paul Ibbotson now, trying to force an overtake, you'd say, to try and get his way further up the order on John Uyan here for P21 overall, but of course for what that would be P7 in class. So he's looking to make the move, but of course it gets difficult around this part of the track, because particularly when you get to Cunningham Corner up there, if you have the outside line, you don't really have enough. The corner doesn't really suit the outside line, I think is what I'm trying to say here. The inside line, you can really just use it to your advantage. You can try and push the car on the outside out a little bit, and they don't want to get onto the grass there because it really compromises your line all the way to Tower Turn. So it's difficult to make a move through there, but Paul Ibbotson was going to try for it somewhere, but as they run through, you're looking at your best overtaking opportunities, probably down here towards Sunset Bend, where Paul Ibbetson's about to get up towards.
Yeah, I think he's got to get it here. You can't risk it for a biscuit through 15, 16. You know, you've got to make sure that you're coming down here, getting it down into the famous corner at the end of the straight in Sunset before you go running up into turn 1, and that's always going to be a challenging aspect. It looks like we've lost James Bowders, Wayne Garvin, Stacey Scotts and Tom Mountjoy here. Stacey looks like it's just DNF'd. I can't see anything particular where she may have had an issue. I'm going to say she, but I'm probably going to get told it's a they or him. So if I have got that wrong, I do apologise for that. But yeah, it's a very interesting one. Gilles Lalonde has just gone a little bit slower. Lanny Hall's just had an off track as well. Lanny's up further up in the Hall Brothers Acura. He's trying to chase down George Angelidis at the moment here as well, Dara. So, yep, more action to come, I'm sure. We'll keep an eye on all the battles, and we'll keep an eye on Micah Locke having a good old scrap here with Matt Overton as these guys are battling it out.
And I think we're going to be waiting as well for when the hypercars start to lap the GT3s, because that's when it's really going to kick off as well. Because we're going to see lots of the hypercars trying to find their way through. Some of the GT cars, maybe not expecting them there. Maybe the hypercars being a little bit ambitious. But there's going to be a lot of overtaking to occur just because of the pace advantage that the hypercars have. But when we start to get that, the race is really going to open up. And to be fair, Dan Kirby is not a million miles away from the back of the GT3 train. He'll be on the back of them, I think, by the end of this lap. But he himself, Dan Kirby, has a 7-second lead already. We've only been racing just under 10 minutes, but he is in absolute complete control, and there doesn't really look like there's anyone who can touch him at the moment.
No. The guy's an enigma. He is, seriously, when they talk about aliens in a series or any series that we've covered or been on, you are wondering what you mean by that, but just look at what Dan Kirby's got already. 8.2 seconds of a gap over the person behind, and that is just insane. As we can see a move there from McQuarrie, is battling away with Reyes down in the GT3 AM category. These guys going on to the start-finish straight. So yeah, he's definitely fast, he's definitely quick, but we've got a great little 5-car train developing here. This should be an interesting one if we can keep them all together.
Yeah, it's nice to see these guys going around together. Alexander McQuarrie is the leader of it, and then Ryan Rees, Josh McGlinskey, Stephen Miller, Adrian Rice, of course, not in the same category. Adrian Rice in the Pro category, the first 4 of those cars in the AM category. But this is the point. Oh, as we might see an inside line, I think that was just in behind. I think that might have been Miller going for a move. Actually, in fact, it was Adrian Rice, who is that pro driver in the order. Stephen Miller getting overtaken, I do believe. But this is the point for the likes of Adrian Rice. These drivers, you're going to be picking up the same amount of points whether you're ahead of them or behind them, because they're not in your championship battle. You've got to get up with the back of Eric Jacobs.
No. Oh. That was... Dude, you didn't come past Royal Mail on that one, mate. You come from FedEx. It was that far back. Yeah, Stephen Miller there definitely should have probably fought twice before he went and did something like that. And unfortunately managed to miss the car in front there. So, you know, Adrian Rice did survive, but it could have been a lot worse. So for him, he's going to have to just be a little bit more chilled. Let's just be a little bit more calmer here, because you don't want to get yourself any incidents or anything like that, because it's a little bit earlier on in the season. We're going to go back up to the hypercars here. We've got Mike Bell currently having a right old little ding-dong, and he is facing away with Brian Hall, not too far in front here.
Yeah, these two are close, and they're also going to be up to quite a lot of GT3 lap traffic very shortly, so this battle could get spicy. That gap between Dan Kirby and Kesby has stalled a little bit, but it's because Dan Kirby is going through all of these GT3 cars that you can now see as they come down the Allman Straight. It's easy to negotiate these GT3s when you're getting them down the straight, but you can see there Dan Kirby having to go a little bit to the inside, not taking that optimal line to get through on one of those GT3 cars. He's not got that many to overtake anymore, or at least in this little train. We have 1 hour of the race yet to go, so still a lot to unfold, but you can just see the pace advantage that Dan Kirby has over these GT3s. But it's this part of the circuit, isn't it, up here at turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, where the track tightens, and it is dangerous to meet one of these GT3s.
Yeah, it is, because he's got nowhere to go now, especially with... Stay there! Oh, that was McQuarrie. Big old snap on the curb, but unfortunately for McQuarrie, he's just come off. Not an ideal scenario there. I've seen that so many times at that corner, Dara, as well. Hit the curb on the outside. Good night, Vienna. There just seems to be something about that curb that just basically doesn't allow you to come off it cleanly, as we see Dan Kirby still snaking his way through the traffic. Mike Bell is doing the same thing. Unfortunately, he's got a lot more in front of him to contend with as Kirby has gone through this, and this is one of the problems they're going to have, because if we go back, I'm hoping I get this right, a couple of hypercars, they were GT3 side by side, so the hypercar had nowhere to go apart from sit there and wait.
Yeah, look, you can just see through here at Cunningham Corner, you don't really want to be forcing that move. Oh, as we see a spin, I think we just saw in the foreground of the shot as the camera angle changed there. But if that was a hypercar, I believe it looked very much in that snapshot like a hypercar spinning, possibly overtaking a GT3, and that's exactly what can happen. As we now see Angelidis. Was it Angelidis there making a moment?
Scarpope. I believe it may have been Scarpope doing this.
Yeah, let's see. Down in towards corner.
Oh,
yeah, that gets very tight. And it was hypercar and hypercar, wasn't it? There.
It was, yeah, hypercar and hypercar. I'm wondering if that may have been Jerry Chen. I'm going to see if I can go back and see if it was Jerry. No, it wasn't. Oh, it wasn't even Hunter, unfortunately. I don't think in that one. But yeah, that contact just that little bit there as well. Kesby's also been off the side of the circuit. This is a GT3 maneuver, which is not going to get right. He's going to end up going a very long way round there, and not always the best one, but
A lot of these corners have lots of different lines, but that is not one of them to take around there. Let's see, Ben Kesby now. You can see that gap is kind of still between himself and Dan Kirby. It's up to 9 seconds or so, but it was increasing much quicker before we saw the drivers getting through this lap traffic. This is Mike Bell, though. Oh, there's a spinning GT3 car behind. This is Mike Bell fighting away with Hall as they run up towards Cunningham Corner, and it's going to be a little bit difficult for Hall to try and make the move with that GT3 car in the way just a little bit. He's got the inside line for Cunningham Corner, a little bit of a tap as well between the two cars, and I think Hall is just about going to get through, but this is what we talk about when we say that the lap traffic can really decide the race, because we saw how close Bell and Hall were, and then in a split second, Hall is now about a second and a half, 2 seconds down.
Yeah, that is one of the points, and that is just purely because you can use the traffic to your advantage, right? You can box them in behind it. You can just make sure that you're running down side by side. If you see a GT3 in front of you and he's on the left, go to the right of the car you're trying to overtake, because you can use him and blocking him in. If he's on the right, you want to make sure that you're on the left-hand side this time, because otherwise you're going to be in more trouble than it's worth. Unfortunately for George Angelidis, it looks like he may have been off the side of the circuit. That was probably coming around 15 through Le Mans into 16 and then down and start the Ullman straight. You can see a couple of GT3s fighting out in front of us, and that's a Mike Sunthan lap there. He's mixed in with John Uyan, so great little battles going on. There's just so much action going on further down the field as the hypercars are coming through. It's very difficult. Where's going to be the best place to point the camera, to be honest?
Yeah, we are really in this middle phase of the hypercars getting through the GT3s. There is basically just a big clump of drivers on the track, and then a big area where there is absolutely nobody. About half the track, there is not a soul at the moment, and that is the second half of the laps. You're talking about, realistically, from Cunningham Corner all the way to the line, there's barely a soul around there, and it means that Dan Kirby has only got one more GT3 car to put a lap on, and that is Alessio Neto. The two drivers that won their respective races last time out at Daytona, they're doing very well for themselves at the moment, and Dan Kirby, now that he's got through on Alessio Neto, he can just start to pull that gap as Kesby gets stuck behind these GT3 cars, and it's already up to 12.6 seconds. George Angelidis is hoping to close back into Pope, but it's looking very, very ominous, isn't it, from Dan Kirby so far this season? Yeah,
it is. I took these cars out because I think these cars are amazing, and I took the cars out, and honestly, the pace, the speed, the rush that you get is just absolutely incredible. I got a message in a chat there that said Mike Bell is coming, so we're going to keep an eye on Mike as he is in the wall.
Who's that in the background? It wasn't Mike Bell.
It was Mike Bell who got himself put in the wall in the last corner, though. However,
oh, was it? Oh, right. I look away for 1 second. I look back. I see Mike Bell plodding along, but in the meantime, he's just hit the wall somewhere at the final corner. I presume.
Final corner, yeah, coming around. He basically just carried far too much speed. Well, not far too much. He carried more than Vesser, who got stuck behind the GT3 coming out of the last corner. Of course, Vesser checked up. Mike Bell had nowhere to go. The only place he did run was straight into the wall. So there we go.
There's not really much you can do, is there?
No.
When you get to that stage, there's no really you can go. And that's the point about the traffic, because particularly around Sunset Bend, the traffic, you don't really know what they're going to be doing. There's about 4 lines you could take. One of them is going to put you in the wall, one of them is the correct one, and the other two is going to cause you contact with the GT3 car. So you've really got to be careful and astute with where you put the car, but going to allow a little bit of respite for Kyle Vaser, but it's straight back on the back of him. Bell is right thereabouts as they work their way through. I think that is Alessio Neto in the foreground being overtaken by Kesby there. So these two, they've only got the one car, and it is Alessio Neto, you can see. So they've only got the one car, and then they're free for another couple of laps before they come back to the GT3 train once again. So this is where I think Mike Bell's really going to try and make the move stick, and a little bit of lock-up as well. This is getting dicey.
Besser just, for me, he looks so undecided. He looks so undecided on where he's going to go and which way he's going to put the car. And Bell's in the background going, I have no idea what's going on. please pick a side, and he has managed to get it done, which is where we said he should get it done, down into Sunset there. But it just, for me, Vesa just looks so undecided in traffic. He looks so nervy in traffic. And of course, we've got Alec King coming through the field as well. He pitted very early, so we'll have to see how that one plans out. So we've got 52 minutes on the clock here. Alec King, Brian Hall aren't far apart. Vesa and Bell, well, they've got Kesby 2.5 seconds up the road, and then Kesby's got a 13-second gap up to Dan Kirby. So they're very spread out here. And as you can see in the other classes, it's really Miller and Reyes down in the GT3 AMS that are having a ding-dong as well.
Yeah, now I've just looked at the timing page as well, and someone we need to look out for definitely is Alec King, because he's now caught up onto the back of Hall in P5 in the hypercar class. Remember, he pitted very early in this race. He has got the fastest lap of this race so far, and he's just been able to pound the lap times out without really having to be caught in any traffic, so he's definitely someone to watch out for. He might be there or thereabouts with Dan Kirby come the end of this race, depending on what the strategies say, but that is something that I've only just noticed, and I think we might see a bit of ding-dong battling going on here between King and Hall as they run their way through Tower Turn. So, you know, battles are brewing here, because we've still got 50 minutes of this race, still lots of strategy decisions to be made, but I think Alec King very early on decided what he was going to do, and it might work out for him.
Well, to be fair to him, if you think about what he's done, he's reversed the splash and dash. Doesn't have to splash and dash at the end. So he's taken his splash and dash at the beginning, filled up what he thinks he would have left and needing to fill at the end, and now he's just going to have 2 full pit stops that will take him to the end of the race. And we've got some horrible gloating going on in the YouTube chat and the CMS YouTube channel there, with the out there saying, "I told you, yes, well done for you. Props where props begins." There, and you did a great job telling us what went on. So there we go. But yeah, it's going to be an exciting one, and I think going forward, see how they all pan out. Strategy beware, shall we say, because there's definitely going to be some coming.
Yeah, absolutely, but we'll see how these guys battle out. Alec King, he doesn't really want to be doing this strategy and then get stuck a little bit in behind with the rest of the drivers who aren't really on his strategy. They aren't really his race at this stage of the race. We'll have to see how he negotiates his way through, but he's got another bit of clean there when he gets through on Hall, really, doesn't he? Another 8 seconds or so up to Vesa, but then there's that train with Kesby. So it's always the challenges up the road, but once you get through Kesby, there is a mile between him and Kirby. 15 seconds now is that gap, and just even looking at the track map, there is a big old gap between first and second, and Dan Kirby is already approaching the back of the GT3 train again to start lapping for the second time in this race. So he hasn't really had much of a respite, has he?
No, he's going to get it lap after lap now. I'll be very surprised if he didn't meet a GT3 lap after lap, and it's going to be happening, but he's got such a big gap. As long as he's sensible, I don't think he really has got much to worry about in conjunction here, Dara, to be honest with you. I think for Kirby, nice and straightforward. However, for JT Tammy down here in the Lexus, he's chasing down Paul Ibbotson in that Lamborghini that we can see. And again, nice little movements from JT Tammy. He's done a good job so far in that Lexus. You know, not many people in the Lexus, let's just put it that way. So for him to be in there, yeah, he's not been too bad at all.
It's an interesting choice, isn't it, really, the Lexus GT3 car, but it's working out for JT Tammy, so he must feel comfortable in it. As they work their way through, I'm noticing some pit stops on the top left of the hypercars. Bell and King are into the pit lane for the first time in this race, and they have gone about 22 minutes or so, give or take, in the opening stint, which suggests that they'll be probably doing a 2-stop here. They won't need a 3rd stop if they can get that to the end. But if they're right on the limit, 22 plus 22 plus 22, we're looking at, they might run out with only about 4 or 5 minutes to go. So it is right on the edge.
Yeah, it is as well. Do you know what they are? I'm looking at that in YouTube chat, and you saying about penalties, and I'm actually trying to see where the penalties, if there was any out of Daytona, and I can't see anybody being issued a penalty. So I'm wondering there for Alec King if he was just doing what we said we were doing. As JT Tammy goes past Ibbotson, that puts Ibbotson into the hands of Sunthornlap behind Mark Sunthornlap in that Corvette there. One of the very few Corvettes. There's a big old dive going on up in the hypercars at the moment. You just saw them on your screen. I'm wondering, there's no point flashing them, go round them. There we go. And make the most of the traffic. Is he going to be able to make it through? I'm trying to pick up who that is in that hypercar. I'm wondering if that's Jerry. It's not Jerry Chen and it's not Brian Hall. So it must be further down a little bit, maybe, with these guys as well. So, yeah, we'll keep an eye out. But, yeah, great fighting, great action. And as you say, pit stop strategies are plenty now. So now it's going to be where and how they master the strategy itself.
Yeah, we're seeing those pit stops shake themselves out down. Kirby is not going to be leading this race, would you believe? He's going to come out looking like in P3 here, which is, you know, not where he'd want to be, but I'm sure he'll be comfortable enough or confident enough to make up those positions later on in the race. Nice battles, though, throughout the field. Paul Ibbotson, we're looking at here, trying to defend his P8 place now in the GT3 Pro category. He's trying to defend that, of course, from Mark Sunthornlap. Max, Sunthornlap. Oh, but that's not the best of lines through Le Mans, and he might have a go here.
Yeah, that was Gilles Lalonde making his way through. Where we said there was a hypercar involved, that was actually Gilles Lalonde as Max Sunthornlap in the Corvette C8 there behind Paul Ibbotson in that Lamborghini Huracan, and it looks like that Sunthornlap just had the inside line, the grip and everything else, and he's just made it work, and he's just gone scooting off past him currently here with 45 minutes on the clock. We have lost Tom Nacella, Stacey Scott, Tom Mountjoy. So there you go. How's Ross Smith doing in his charge through the field? Well, he's currently sitting in 31st place overall, is Mr. Smith. So for him, not quite the dizzy heights that we thought we would see him at.
No, not yet. You never know. Give him some time. He might be able to work his way through the field. There's always hope, isn't there, for him in this race? But we'll have to see if he can work his way further up the order. Looking at the tower on the left-hand side there, you can see all of the classes mixed in together. And particularly at the top, you can see that Chen, ahead of Vaser, means that there's that car between himself and Graf in their class. And Pope is in P3, but again, another couple of cars in the mix as well. So there are those drivers there or thereabouts who are mixing it in with, or the AM drivers mixing it in with the pro drivers in their classes, which is fantastic to see. Another thing to mention is that at the moment we have got Gilles Lalonde in a hypercar, an Alpine hypercar, working his way through the top LMGT3 cars for position. He is a lap down, really, on the leader completely. So he's got to make his way through on a few of these guys still for position. We'll have to see how he can do. This is Kyle Vaser. He's making a move for P5. And that's a very nicely made move in that final sector where it can get tight. But he's shown that you can make a way through there.
Yeah, Vaser getting clear in Jerry Chen. Now Chen's just got to go to work. It's now all or nothing. What does he do? Does he stay? Does he go? Does he go after him? Well, to be honest with you, give it a go, son. You know, go for it. Try and stay with it. Vaser does look fast, mind you, but also looks a little bit prone to insecurities about passing traffic. So unless he's got a big old gap like this to be able to make that move through the twisties, he looks a little bit more stuck there. So they've got to be a little bit more careful. I was going to pick up Gilles Lalonde, but he's making his way through the GT3s currently. He's just past Eugene Mazur. So Gilles Lalonde up into 16th place. Alicio Neto, however, well, kind of that close. And Mateus Santos not too far behind him. So, yeah, a little bit of a ding-dong happening with people in multi-classes. But so far, so good.
It's been nice to see these guys fighting out over the course of this opening third of the race or so far. We've still got 43 minutes to go, still a lot to unfold, and still that Mobil 1 advertising hoarding is sitting on that outside line at Cunningham Corner, but it is not causing any of these drivers too many problems, I don't think. You can see Santos, he really is having to soar at the steering wheel. It doesn't look like a comfortable ride in there whatsoever. And I think this isn't going to be a story solely for him. I think a lot of these guys are going to be struggling with some of the handling of these cars. I remember you were telling me, James, before the opening race at Daytona, and I think you said it on the screen, that many of these cars felt like they wanted to kill you. So these guys, they're not the easiest beasts to handle, are they?
No, there's a lot more power. Now, we've got Stacey Scotts in the YouTube chat. I was trying to work out what happened, and I have a funny feeling it's somewhere around... Now, where's it gone? I just literally had it there. As you can see, just unfortunately... Well, that's kind of happening, isn't it? There's not a lot of anything in that Lamborghini. Sure, there must have been contact before that, though. That's caused that Lamborghini to have so many issues that it has got. But not too good, unfortunately. I'm sure Stacey would love to be telling us more about it in the YouTube chat. Unfortunately, there as well was DNF'd out of this race. But Alec King back behind Norm Graf in 9th at the moment.
Yeah, he's sitting in behind here at the moment. I think he made another pit stop, didn't he, with the rest of the drivers? So, really, he seems to be on that same strategy. So we'll have to see how that all pans out for him. Maybe pick up some damage on the opening lap. Of course, we didn't necessarily see absolutely everything that unfolded. It was a chaotic opening lap with all the drivers, all 4 classes, fighting away together. Another thing to mention, of course, that we were told that the day cycle in this race is sped up quite a bit. So it's going to get dark, we've been told, in this race. So when it gets dark, it's going to get dark pretty quickly. And the lights are going to come on. And these drivers are going to have to adjust very generally, if it's a 12-hour long race in normal daylight conditions, you have that time to adjust. Your eyes adjust. Oh, that's not the line, I don't think, from Norm there. But when the cycle is that much quicker, you've got to adjust that much quicker, and it can lead to some mistakes.
This is where I think, where we talk about multi-class as well, when people say to me, oh, we're going to run the 12-hour Sebring, I'm like, oh, cool. James, do you want to do the night run as you're a night owl? No, I do not. Because I'm then coming into the car in the dark. I haven't driven in the daytime. So I don't know where my braking points are at the moment. I don't know where I'm going to be able to be quicker, as we can see Alec King just cleared Norm Graf. So the last thing I want to do is, hey, mate, come sit in a car that's pitch black. No, just no. And I believe that is Alicia Neto going down the pit lane as the GT3s start their run through the pit stop cycle. So for me, I'd do 20 minutes before the night and go through. I've got no problem with that because I know where I'm looking at and I know what I'm looking for. But yeah, I do not want to be coming straight into a car flat in the dark, maybe because I'm a wimp and maybe because I've not eaten enough carrots.
It's difficult though, isn't it? I mean, just for these guys to adapt, as we were talking about, they've just got to adjust. It's a difficult transition, really, between the day and the night, and I think we might see some of these guys towards the end of this race. Maybe a few mistakes creep in. We might see some even more contact between the GT3s and the hypercars. As it is, we now have cars all over the track. There are not many areas on the track where you won't find a car, as we're now looking at Gonçalves coming through the final corner, currently in P29 overall as he comes through Sunset Bend. He is on the back of, that is Alexander McQuarrie, who is P2 in the AM category, as they run their way through Sunset Bend. As you can see, all the class leaders on the left-hand side. I think we've got some GT3 pit stops as well, and that means that all of a sudden we're going to see some more positions gained for these guys. But yeah, lots going on. Oh, and that is very wide. I think that might be someone coming out of the pit lane. If it isn't, that could be Alessio Neto.
That was your leader, like yeah. That was the leader of the GT3s when he went in. And look, unfortunately, he's looking a little bit scraggly-waggly at the moment, and he needs to get that Mercedes a little bit more calmed down before you start throwing your foot flat to the floor there. Stacey, tell us what happened. How did you end up DNFing out of the race? We just saw the end of it. Unfortunately, we couldn't find the beginning of what went on with your good self there. So let us know in YouTube chat what actually happened to you to make you end up, well, it looked like your car was extensively damaged. So I'm guessing you've hit a wall somewhere. That would be my philosophy. Oh, Kesby's out. Oh, ooh.
Never know. I mean, it could be a disconnect as well, but ploughing the car into the wall itself.
No, that's... Okay. That was a bit of everything. Bit of getting it wrong because he hit the curb. And then a little bit of a disconnect in the meantime. I think he disconnected before the contact. That's why it looked a little bit strange there from Kesby. But yeah, I think he disconnected before the contact with the barrier, but I had a funny feeling that's where he was probably heading, and unfortunately Kesby has gone round, and that is it, job done, as Alec King is now, I believe, in front of Scar Pope, who, that's not actually Scar Pope, it's Dom Hunter in with Alec King there as they continue to fight in that mid-pack.
Yeah, we'll have to see how they do. I apologise if anybody heard me having a little bit of a connection issue. The irony was I was making a point about connection issues and then I had one myself. If no one heard anything, that would have been because it was a longer connection issue than I thought. But either way, we run our way through. 36 minutes left to go here. Don Hunter is being tracked down. Look at this. 2 GT3 cars, 3 hypercars. They're all trying to fly over the same piece of tarmac on the run down towards Sunset Drive. Don Hunter very much in the slipstream on the back of one of the AM cars. Alec King find his way through. There's big contact there through the middle of Sunset Bend, and Alec King, he's not waiting around. Jerry Chen is the car not too far in front. But Alec King, he clearly wants to make this move done quickly.
Oh, if he's... The problem is that door, it's almost like standing there and you're in the bank and the safe's wide open and you're seeing all your gold bullion, and just as you're about to run for it, somebody slams the door in your boat race. And that is exactly what Alec King just got. He got a sniff of a gap that was left open by Don Hunter, and he went there, and unfortunately for Alec, he stuck his hand too early in the safe, as there's a big old off track. I think that may have been Gilles Lalonde. What is... Oh no! Oh
and
my...
There's a massive incident.
I
think there's another hypercar down there as well.
I believe...
Look what happened to it. Ooh.
Oh... Wow.
It's a massive incident, and you can just see everyone trying to get out of the way as they run their way down there. It just looked like there was a little bit of a, maybe just a touch of, yeah, look at that, touch of contact on the exit. That sends the car down in towards the wall, and then that contact then sends the Alpine hypercar there into the other hypercar. That's a massive incident. Oh, that's just skittles.
Yeah.
And then everyone in behind's trying to avoid everything. There was that GT3 car that coming through. I couldn't believe his luck. He somehow survived.
Yeah, I want to see it from Alec King's point of view if I can. Because this is what Alec's seeing. Look, he's coming up to it now. Everybody's stopping. He goes one way. There's a car there. Ah! Round he goes. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One more off the grass here as well. Behind Ibbotson, who survived it just. But that was huge.
And a just very big shout out to Paul Ibbotson for putting his name on the back of the car, because that makes it much easier for us to recognise exactly who that is. But Alec King, he's going to be counting his lucky stars that he got through there, and I think it allowed him to make his way through on Don Hunter as well. Indeed he did, and he's now the driver on the back of Jerry Chen, trying to make a move stick here. But either way, the guys at the front, Dan Kirby, Mike Bell, Brian Hall, they're not fussed. They weren't involved. Kyle Vaser as well. Dan Kirby, though, he now has a lead of 27 seconds. That's a massive advantage. We're about halfway through the race, just over. I mean, this could be looking at half a lap by the end of the race.
Yeah, I don't really know what to say about Dan. He has got... He's just got alien blood. The car is him. He just lays down on his bed and he can drive the car there without even getting in the sim. It's that impressive what he does. And if he is carrying an injury of some sort, which we believe he is, that's even more impressive. So maybe we'll have a chat with him after there and see how we get on. But Kim and Stacey Scotts are in the YouTube chat as well. Wow, wow, says theirs. He's just sat again. Wow, wow. Paul made it through. So yeah, he did. And Stacey's bad lag, unfortunately, which has caused a problem probably with the disconnect on that one. So yeah, great little battles going on. And that was one highlight there that, well, was an interesting one. Just a little bit of a parking lot down at turn 7.
Yeah, a bit of a... the Americans, they love a good parking lot, don't they? So I think it was only right that we had to have it during the race.
Normally at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, we had to find one somewhere, didn't we? Here we go, Kyle Vaser fighting away now, inside line it seems. I believe that is for Vaser to try and make his way through on P3. That got very close to contact, and a little bit of rubbing, I think, of doors as they made their way through turn 4 and turn 5. They now run out back towards the hairpin. Hopefully there's no cars to avoid this time around. Kyle Vaser is up and through, and now it's going to be Hall who's going to be trying to make the move back, I do believe, unless... I've got the cars mixed up, but no, I haven't, because Kyle Vaser, he's up into P3. It's exactly what he would have wanted in that Acura car. There's another yellow in Sector 3. I'm not too sure who that is. Could be any of half the grid, realistically. But Vaser up into P3. He needed that move done pretty quickly, and that's where he got it done.
Yeah, he did. He's now trying to get on his bike, isn't he? And that's the thing. For Kyle Vaser, as you can see, Brian Hall making his way past the GT, well, nearly getting past the GT3. That's the Mercedes of the 036 machine in front of us. That's Mateus Santos, who we haven't really seen much of. He's just gone about his business doing it rather well, and he's just doing it rather well. He's second in the LMGT3 Pros, so a stellar job from him. And yeah, carry on, mate. You just plod around there and get your job done. And Stephen Miller is now leading the AMS by about 19 seconds over McQuarrie. And McQuarrie's got Concalves, and the other man still coming through traffic is Gilles Lalonde. And at the moment, we've lost Kesby, Galvin, Nacella, Scotts and Mountjoy. So 5 cars out, but that does still leave us a nice healthy field to keep running with.
Yeah, still loads of cars dotted around the circuit. I was just looking at the driver tracker there, and there's barely any gaps on the racetrack. There's cars clumped together all the way through the field. Dan Kirby is currently making his way through on James Walker and Stephen Miller in P26 and P27 overall. At the moment there he goes through. He's nearly half a minute up with half an hour remaining. Absolutely inhuman stuff, as we have been saying. But, you know, one more pit stop probably for these guys in the hypercar. A couple more laps, you think, if they can stretch it out, maybe just this lap and one more, they could get to the end, but probably one more after that.
Yeah, we think there's going to be one. If they can get to the end, they've got to get to the next one. So, you know, let's see how they get on, I think, from some of these guys, and see how they've managed it, and whether or not fuel strategies played into a part, or whether or not Sebring is just too short in conjunction with other strategy circuits where you are able to save fuel, if that makes sense. I know what I'm trying to say, but it's late over here, so I'm just trying to say it as best I can. It isn't really a little bit long enough. He's got a more lift going in through this section and braking a little bit earlier and things like that before obviously he can get the there's fuel saving that he needs, should we say.
Yeah, I mean, Sebring, there's more heavier braking zones for you to try and make up some of that fuel, or just lift off a little bit easier to make it up. But as it is, it's something that they're going to have to be thinking about. And it's going to be a theme throughout the season, really, isn't it? That we're going to have to see how these drivers manage it, how they try and adapt to it. And who can manage it best through the races, because if a championship just could come down to being able to save enough fuel not to need a splash and dash at one or two of the races. So it is crucially important. We'll have to see who can, if anybody, make this go longer than everybody else can. But as we see, I believe a few of these guys coming through now. You can see the hypercars working their way through, stringing out a little bit as they run through Tower Turn, getting close. For I think this is Eric Jacobs we are looking at. on the run down through Tower Turn. But, you know, we have seen the guys gap out, but I think after the pit stop, they're going to bunch back up again.
Yeah, they were. I was looking at Jacobs because he was having a nice little battle with Rice at one point, and then they've kind of spread out a little bit more, unfortunately, for these guys. And Stacey, well, yes, fair play. You did not finish last, so well done on that one. You were only outbeaten by Tom Mountjoy, who stopped at 15, well, what was it, 15 laps. So, yeah, you know, well done for you, though. So, but yeah, interesting. I think this is one of these things in these racetracks where you're sitting back and you're just trying to wonder where we're going to end up. Is Bell going to get near Kirby? Is Besser going to jump Bell? And it's all a little bit up in the air at the moment.
To be fair, I don't think Bell getting close to Kirby is particularly up in the air. I'd be willing. I'm not a betting man, but I would be willing to put quite a bit of money on Dan Kirby. Oh, I don't know. I'll put a tenner on it. I'll put a tenner on it for now.
I don't know.
Only because we're half an hour out.
Yeah, and you could see that if Kirby gets caught up with anything, he could end up in the clutches.
Even if he has a big incident like we saw for the likes of down at the hairpin, he's still going to be in the lead. He's got a 33-second advantage.
What about damage? Do we not accumulate for damage?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But then again, at this point, you'd think that he'd be cautious enough. He doesn't need to make the moves unnecessarily. He doesn't really need to go for it.
No, I do agree.
I would just be absolutely shocked.
Yeah, I think I would be shocked as well. But as we know, it's multi-class. As we know, we're at a track like Sebring. And as we know, again, absolutely anything can happen. So although I'd love to sit here and say Kirby's taken the pro win, I wouldn't say that until we went over the line, because we've still got 25 minutes of action and anything could happen in them 25 minutes. So, yeah, be brave on that one, Dara. But I always found when you're doing that, you might want to just err on the side of caution.
It's always fun tempting fate, though, isn't it? try and create some kind of drama.
For you, it is, yeah.
Yeah, I'm very sorry to Dan if anything does happen.
Explain that one.
Like, I would be fully to blame. Exactly. I can't. Oh!
See?
For a moment there, I thought he'd gone off, but I think it was a bit of lag there on the screen. I now am worried about Dan Kirby. And something very bad might happen to him. But either way, we hope he doesn't disconnect or anything goes terribly amiss. But as it stands, here we look at Stuart Barge. He's got Adrian Rice not too far in front of him. He's fighting over P11 in the GT3 Pro category. He's far and away from that hypercar battle. But he's still got his own battle. Every driver's still got their own battle, and it's great to see nearly an hour into this race.
Yeah, you think that you would sit back and go, right, where am I? Where do I need to be, and who do I need to get past? Because commentators' curses are real. No, Stacey, the commentators' coincidences with drivers' lack of skill. I was told that by Zach Sweeney, so can you message him, not me. It's him who just says it's the commentators' coincidence and lack of skill from the drivers. So take it up with him, but... Look, I don't know if the commentator's curse is real. It just seems to happen, unfortunately, at very peculiar times there, Dara. But I'm going to go with driver skill could be an error.
I mean, it all comes into it, doesn't it? I mean, there's many things that we all say about the race and about drivers, and sometimes immediately after saying them, something completely opposite happens. It does happen, but then again, there is that kind of the risk win, you could say, where 90% of things you say, everything's fine, but then 5% of things change the race, and you could think that you cursed it, but it could have happened anyway. But either way, these guys, they can't hear us. They're driving their own race, whether it's a curse or not. They are. Oh, that is an interesting camera angle.
Yeah,
there we go. We can see the car. It's Ross Smith in that pink machine. He's currently up in P10. He's doing a good job at the moment on the back end of that top 10, trying to hold on. But Adrian Rice, he's on a charge, isn't he?
Yeah, it's Adrian Rice and Ross Smith in their Lamborghini Huracan. Now, they did say there was some form of teamwork going on between the Lamborghini teams. Not entirely sure what that is, but it's happening, and obviously, right as I said that, if Adrian had taken off Ross, that had really gone out of the window of the teamwork. But I believe there was a conversation that Ross was saying between the Lamborghini teams, so we'll have to see. As there, that's Vesser. Is it Vesser? It was Vesser, as he's trying to force moves through GT3s, and sir, what? Why?
And this is the point we were making before. Exactly the point that you take stakes, particularly up here in Sector 1, when you're trying to overtake these GT3s. It's so easy to do, and I think maybe just touching the inside curb there and turned out of a bit of oversteer. It's difficult to say from that angle, but either way, it's cost him some time, some valuable time, really. But it can always happen around, particularly Sector 1, because those curbs are high. You don't really want to touch them, and then the track's narrow. It's not really that wide to have two going through there, so not ideal, but he's still in a straight line, and really that's the main thing.
Well, this is what the incident was. Now, I had to go a little bit further back, unfortunately, but this is what he did coming up to the cars that, well, at the time we were actually sat on, and if he's dived this car, dived the car, lost the car, and then tries to get back on the gas as early as possible and loses it again. So, not ideal.
No, it's really not ideal, is it? But, I mean, it's all part of the game. It's all part of endurance racing, and that's really why we love it so much. He's going to come into the pit lane now, though, and get himself off of those, or get some more fuel into the car, rather than maybe he might put some more tyres on the car, but really, this pit stop is to pump the fuel tank back up once again. But we're seeing lots of these drivers now coming into the pit lane. 21 minutes left. You'd think if you're pitting now, you can pretty much go to the end.
I would be very surprised if any of the hypercars have got to go again. I really would be shocked if that would be the case, as we're having a look down here at Matthew Overton fighting away in that multi-class area. Here's the mixed table on your left-hand side. We'll see how far up people are, and you can see we've got Hamilton, Santos in 13th in the first GT3. And of course, we were saying that we haven't seen much of Santos. He's just gone about doing his business. But I suppose for him, that's what he wants, because if he's just going around doing his business, he's not getting caught up in other people doing their business.
Exactly, because you don't really want to be fighting around in other people's races, especially with 4 classes in this field. Cars everywhere, drivers driving their own race, and especially when you're a hypercar lapping these guys, some of them are going to be fighting harder, pushing harder than others, and you don't really know who's doing what. So there's always that element as well of not really knowing exactly or how kind the GT3s are going to be when they let you through, or if they let you through. But we're looking now. This is Gilles Lalonde, or it was Gilles Lalonde. No, it isn't even Gilles Lalonde. It's Mathieu Santos making his way through, and he is just about in front, I do believe.
No, it's Neto. That is Neto.
It is Neto.
Yeah, but Neto is a long way behind Santos, mind you. As a hypercar, well, yeah, tried to do something that I'm not sure. But we discussed this as well with hypercars, and it's been discussed before with obviously movements through GT3s. It has even been described to me as a little merry dance going into the corners, and unfortunately that hasn't always worked out because of the fact that it just seems to get a little bit messy, I think, from the GT3s and the hypercars. Both of them, you know, as anything, as you say, you've got to facilitate a pass to make a pass correctly, right? You know, it's not all on, can't be all on one driver, surely, because obviously that would just be a bit difficult if there was contact. So it does take 2 drivers to dance around that corners together to make the passes, but the hypercars have got to be a little bit sensible, because otherwise they're going to be diving a little bit too early.
And we have seen those errors, haven't we, so far in this race, and they won't really want to be making them now, because this is the crunch point. 18 minutes left. I mean, if you make a mistake now, you have got a very small window to try and recover that time of position. So it really is focused on making sure you bring the car home and not really making any big mistakes. Jerry Chen will be thankful that he's got through on that GT3 car well before turn 1. No concerns about the line or the racing line that he can take, and he's straight through that opening corner. Dan Kirby, 40 seconds now in the lead. Pope currently leading the Hypercar AM category. And you touched on it before, Neto really hasn't had a fantastic race at all. He was leading quite comfortably in the GT3s, but something must have happened to him, because he's now a lap down on the leader, Matheus Santos.
Yeah, he had, apart from having a couple of bad exits, I'm just wondering if he was caught up in that big old collision down at turn 7, which may have put him back in the pits again. So, yeah, a little bit worrying, but it can't really doing any more now for Neto. He's got whatever he's got to produce, he's got to produce completely on his own. We have no say on where people finish, of course, but yeah, bit of a tough one for Neto. Unfortunately, I just can't seem to find if there was any real dramatics with him, so it's a little bit hard here. But look, I think, to be honest, we've still seen that great racing, which is what we've prospectively come in for.
Yeah, it's something we always look forward to at Sebring, isn't it? Because we know it's tight, we know it's twisted, we know the surface is bumpy, and there's all these different elements to this particular circuit that you don't really get anywhere else, which is what makes endurance racing around here so good. But yeah, we expected a little bit of carnage. We've had it. We've expected some good racing, and we've had it. What we didn't necessarily expect was Dan Kirby being 42 seconds in the lead, 41 at the moment, but he is really pulling out all of the stops. But despite there not being a big battle at the front for that particular class, there is somewhat of battles going on further back, the likes of in the LM GT3 AM category. As I say that, Stephen Miller comes into the pit lane, which kind of ruins the thing I was going to say about him not being far off Alexander McQuarrie. But we've still got, even in the GT3 Pro class, Santos and Mazur, 17 seconds there. But then further back, Matthew Overton 5 seconds back from Eugene Mazur, and then Michael Locke is only a second and a half back from Matthew Overton. So there's still tight battles going on here, and I don't think everything is said and done yet.
No, I think can't be said and done until the checkered flag's out, right? And this is why, although we're sitting here thinking Kirby's got to be safe, surely he's got to be safe. He's 42 seconds. It's almost a pit stop in advance. And yet you see traffic and you think, we've seen lots of this with incidents in regards to traffic. We've seen a massive pile up at the end of turn 7 or before turn 7. So is he really safe? That's the worrying thing here.
Yeah, that's the concern. I mean, when you're in such a comfortable position as he is right now, to a point where, you know, the world might have to end for him to not win this race, it, if anything, puts even more pressure on you, compared to if you were only just about 4 or 5 seconds in front, because you're thinking about the fact that you've got that much of an advantage. You're not really thinking about, okay, I've got to make sure I keep putting the lap times in, hitting the apexes, and getting through the GT3s quickly. Because you've kind of done all of that, you don't really know how to approach it. Do you still go aggressive? Do you still keep pushing? Or do you let off a bit? You don't need to be pushing as hard, and that can lead to mistakes. It can lead to complacency. But we'll have to see how Dan Kirby manages it. He's been so quick for so long. I'm sure he's experienced being this far in the lead before, but, you know, it's still a nice position to be in.
Yeah, I do agree with you. And I think from Kirby, he's got to do what he's been doing. The last thing Kirby wants is to basically let off and it all go wrong, as Gilles Lalonde is got through on Jerry Hamilton. So Gilles battled his way back to the bottom end of the GT from the Hypercar AMS. So he's now joined on to the back, but that's taken him practically the whole race to get to where he's got to. So for Gilles Lalonde, is there any much further gains up the road? Well, only if there's anything drastic happening to the cars in front. Next up is Lanning Hall, and they're on their way around turn 1. So yeah, very interesting scenario how this has all played out. I think pit stops were a major part. We've seen him in and out, and going through and coming out. So, and we've seen poor old Alessio Neto who's not had the greatest pit exits over the last race, you know, the last 45 minutes to an hour. So yeah, bit of thrills and spills and up and downs here, I think, this evening.
And talking about the pit exit, I remember that Stacey said in the chat earlier that I believe they broke their middle finger. They broke their middle finger leaving the pit lane and had to have two fingers taped together for the start of the race. So, yeah, it's not the easiest of pit exits by any stretch of the imagination, especially when you're bouncing across that concrete pit exit and then kind of coming back onto the racing line on the exit of turn one. It's really not very easy and doesn't really lend itself to a very, you know, subtle exit and back onto the racetrack. There's a brief yellow in sector 3, all being cleared up. Very well could have been that GT3 car that we just see getting very quickly passed by Lanny Hall, who's currently P5 and a long way off the back of Norm Graff, who, you know, top four really been on their own. Hall a lot further back, Lalonde much further back himself. So in this Hypercar AM category, it's kind of been as you were right from the start. But again, we've seen mistakes being made. Anything can happen from here.
Oh, is that you saying anything can happen, especially to the man in front?
We've got to try and tempt something, surely, don't we?
Well, yeah, but how are you going to be when you interview him at the end?
Just say, I'm very sorry. I might hide. I might run away. I might go to bed early.
Oh, Mum,
just
sorry,
do everybody else.
Yeah, you'll be there like, sorry, Mum, what's that? You need me to go to sleep? I've got to go. Okay, bye.
Either way, I think Dan Kirby, he's shown so much pace the last two rounds that, I mean, we're looking at a bit of a Max Verstappen situation here, aren't we? That
yeah.
Can he win all of the races?
I wouldn't be surprised, to be fair. He did a great job in the Modern Series and the VWSC last season. You know, he had a couple of bad races, then he went on to win the next 6 or something ridiculous like that. So, it's possible. He took the championship in the end, but I think for him, you know, anything's possible. He's just got to be that moment of sensibility where you sit back and think, right, I can get round the outside, job done. Now, where do I go on the next one? I can queue him up here. I might get him down here. Is he going to lift, or what the situation's going to be? And there's all of this thing taking place in Kirby's head. And of course, we know that he's carrying an injury. Ross told us at the beginning his ankle, which of course is a major part of driving on a simulator because you use your feet. I doubt very much he's on a controller. So, you know, yeah, there's a lot involved here as Emerson is fighting away with James Walker, and these guys having a right little ding-dong at the moment. Walker in the McLaren, Ibbotson in the Lamborghini Huracan, and he's trying to go forward as well with Eric Jacobs, who is just, he's there. You can see Eric in that Mercedes. So 3 manufacturers in the GT3s, and they've still got 10 minutes to battle out.
Yeah, Paul Ibbotson has been right in the battles all the way through this race. Let's see if he can put his way up into P7 around the outside of the hairpin. Doesn't want any dramas here as he goes all the way around, tiptoeing his way and dances his way up into P7. Fantastic move from Paul Ibbotson. Eric Jacobs, he's now going to be careful from the driver in behind as well because they're on up towards Cunningham Corner. It looks like there could have been a side-by-side moment, but in the end, Eric Jacobs just able to fend this one off. But Paul Ibbotson, fantastic move. I mean, JT Tammy possibly out of reach. I mean, actually no, I've just looked at the time, almost certainly out of reach. 37 seconds up to JT Tammy. But these three, I mean, this is still an important battle for them.
Oh, do you know what? Your confidence is overwhelming. Out of reach. You're in a multi-class race, sir.
That's true.
You know, you've done enough multi-classes to know that anything can happen, especially when you're in the mix. Look at that hypercar. It's dancing around. It doesn't know where to go. It's fighting. It's stuck there. So you've got to think realistically here. Could it really be the end, or could it not be? Because the battling that's taking place, James and Eric are fighting out. James is on the left there in that McLaren 720S GT3, another fine looking piece of machinery. Does look beautiful. However, I do wish they'd bring back the centre driving position, because that was absolutely amazing. But hey, that might have been a long time ago. Do you remember the centre steering position in the McLaren?
I don't. That
Oh my
age, or that might just show me
God.
forgetting something.
Now I feel
No, if we
old.
just say that I've forgotten, if we just say that I've forgotten, then it means that it you know, you feel less bad then.
No, I feel old now. I'm going to find out when the centre steering position was released in the McLaren. I can't remember when it actually was, but it was a beautiful looking machine as well. So it was. Now, hold on, as Google has been wonderfully telling me which McLaren has the centre seat. I believe it was the 720S had the centre seat in position. So there we go.
Fair enough.
It's full of information. Now I've just got to find what year was the 720S released, to be honest. But yeah, coming to the end.
Are you sure it's the 720S?
Well, Google's just told me
Because that's exactly what James Walker's in right now. Let's check with Eric Jacobs.
No,
Was it another iteration of the 720S?
Can't have been that one. There was the earlier McLaren. If anybody could just tell us when the earlier McLaren had the very first centre steering, that would be amazing. Because clearly, yeah, it was the. No, that wasn't that one. It was that one.
Google is wonderful until it doesn't give you the answer you're actually looking for.
The 1994 McLaren F1 machine had 3 seats. It had a centre steering position with 2 passenger seats either side of it. So
94, he said.
Yeah, the 1994 McLaren F1.
Yeah, that'll be why I don't recollect.
When were you?
That. It's been 30 years. 30-year anniversary. They might bring something out this year. I doubt it, but they might. You can hold out hope for that.
Oh, dearie me.
I've noticed, actually, just looking at the timing page, that Dan Kirby, he has just backed off a little bit. He said a 1 minute. Actually, no. He said a 1 minute 52 a lap or so ago, but this last lap was a 49.6, which is right on the pace, quickest of anybody in the top 5. Back again, actually, though, looking at the hypercar battle, Don Hunter, Brian Hall, Alec King, these 3 were fighting it out a while ago. They're fighting for P4, and Mike Vaser and Kyle Vaser and Mike Dale.
Okay,
there you go. That's a name mash if you've ever seen one. They're fighting out for P2 as well. So, if anything, the hypercar battles have just ramped up incredibly high in the last few minutes. We'll have to see if anybody can make a last-minute overtake.
Yeah, well, we're going to have to try and keep an eye on the leader. We've got Dom Hunter here. There's Brian Hall in front of us. So we're going to keep an eye on these guys currently. And let's see how they get on. They're going up through, I believe that's turn 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now they're going to be going on the rundown 6 before they come into the site of what was the big one at Sebring, where there was about 7 cars sat there. And it looks like, but Don, he just cannot get through currently on Alec King. King's just gone past him. Don was fighting Bell, who's up, Brian Hall, who's up the road, but unfortunately he's just lost time to Alec King getting past him, and now King is after Hall. So, yeah, not quite done yet. Where is Dan Kirby on the racetrack? He's gone past over the start-finish line. He's weaving his way up through turn 2 and 3. 4 minutes remaining. He's doing 148. So he's going to have at least possibly 2, maybe 3 more laps here to get this to the end.
I think if my math is correct, it's going to be this lap he's on plus 2 more, because he should get to the line with roughly.
So technically, is that 3 laps?
3 minutes ish.
So technically, is that 3 laps?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So it's 3 laps to everyone behind him,
okay.
and they are a long way behind him. So so I think the likes of Brian Hall, Alec King, Don Hunter, they've still got 3 laps to do here. So we'll keep an eye on them. But Mac Sunthunlap, a name that has been causing me some problems this evening, he is trying to defend from Adrian Rice, who himself, he's been making some moves through the field, hasn't he, over the course of the evening in that neon green car. We've got a brief yellow in Sector 2. It's not either of these two drivers.
Bowders, I believe. Mr. Bowders may have been having a moment in the Porsche, but he's looks like he's back up and running now. So yeah, could be him battling away. That top battle that we did have has now gone to Mike Bell being 4.5 seconds back from Vesser, and Alec King 2.5 away from Brian Hall, and Don Hunter 5.5 back from that. So unfortunately, these hypercar battles have got a little bit awry, as Alicia Neto is now DNF'd and Ryan Reyes. So that is currently 2, 4, 6, 7 cars out of the race. So yeah, not bad though, but it still does leave us a healthy 36 cars running as we're coming into the last 2.5 minutes.
It's fun to have a big field, because even if you do get those DNFs, you still have cars all over the road, and we're not short for action either way. There are your class leaders at the top of your screen: Kirby, Chen, Santos and Maglinski. 2 of those drivers, I believe, are the championship leaders coming into this one. So they'll be extending their championship leads. JT Tammy here, he's defending from Eugene Mazza, and Mazza is defending from Matthew Overton. This is the battle at the front of the GT3 category for P2, 3 and 4. Santos might be quite a ways up the road, but these guys, they aren't done with fighting as they come into Cunningham Corner. I think that's a lap GT3 car as well that they are fighting their way through as well. So lots of battling with this little group of cars, and I think Dan Kirby's going to be coming up on it as well very shortly. So we'll have to see how that unfolds with a lap and a half to go, you think, for these guys, if Dan Kirby can find his way through.
Yeah, we have. We have got a lap car involved in this, and we're just trying to work out who that lap car is currently. That looks like a Corvette, if I'm not mistaken. There. So it's trying to see who that lap car is behind Overton. As Dan Kirby goes whizzing.
John Mayer.
John Mayer?
I think. John Mayer. Looking at the positions in that little group, or it could also be Alexander McQuarrie, actually. Yeah, that'll be McQuarrie in that Corvette, who's currently P3 in the AM category. He was fighting in that little battle as well.
Yeah, so McQuarrie...
We've only got one more lap to go now.
Yeah, as Kirby has taken the white flag. So McQuarrie there was getting himself in with the Missouri Overton Tammy. Tammy's escaped, so that's going to leave us with Overton and Eugene Mazur going round, and unfortunately for Mazur, he's just cost him that place by doing that, and that is pretty much game over on that one. Scar Pope, George Angelidis might have something to say about it as it's coming down now. Angelidis in the blue machine, Pope behind. So yeah, not completely done here, but I've got a funny feeling with Dan Kirby where he is, it's job done for Dan Kirby.
Yeah, very much looks like it is. I mean, he's still got a few more corners to go, but I mean, he might have one more car to lap in the form of Stephen Miller if he can get close enough to the back. But either way, he's been so confident, hasn't he? He's driven it exceptionally well. It is just about starting to get dark here at Sebring. Not as dark as maybe we were expecting, but you can really see the light starting to fade. And he will get to Sunset Bend leading as the sun sets over the corner.
Nice segue in. Love that. There. So well done to Tara for that one.
I mean, went in that one all race long just to see when the sun started setting, but it never came. But here we go then, through one more corner. He might just about lap that one car through the final corner. Stephen Miller might just let him through, know that he can't make any more positions. As Dan Kirby, he has been dominance personified in this race. He won at Daytona, and he is going to win very dominantly here at Sebring. 37 seconds plus is the margin as he takes home all of the points he can in this race. Jerry Chen, he's leading the Hypercar AM category, but he's only coming up towards the hairpin now, so still got most of the lap left to run himself. But I do believe everyone else has got quite a long way to run as well. Matthias Santos has got quite a long way. Josh McGlinskey, he, I believe, is... Oh, I think he may have just crossed the line. Indeed, he has.
Yeah, he did. He's still going as well. So it is going to be in order. So it will be Jerry Chen from the Hypercars. Matthias Santos is coming through 7. Josh McGlinskey, nope. Okay, so the AMs will just be over the line before the pros. And Jerry Chen should be over the line before all of them. So, yeah, as Jerry Chen is on his way through now. There we go. That's somebody leaving the server, unfortunately. So, yeah, Jerry Chen, great job in the Hypercar AMs. Not quite sure. George Angelidis and Scar Pope. Yeah, that's probably just cost Pope the second place here. Is now just not going to be able to get him, unfortunately. So, yeah, Pope does make it through on that one. But Matthias Santos still coming and still on the Ullman Straight now.
Yes, we'll have Chen cross the line, and I think he has very dominantly to win that Hypercar AM category. Didn't really look in doubt for much of that race as he has crossed the line. Jerry Chen, fantastic stuff from him. But we will look back to Matthias Santos in this GT3 car. He, again, very, very comfortable drive, not really under much pressure by the end of the race, and he will happily come through to win here at Sebring. The 1.2 hours for the GT3s is won by Matthias Santos as he crosses the line in the lead. JT Tammy, I believe, was a further lap down, so he never really was in trouble once he crossed the line, with Kirby winning behind him. McGlinskey as well winning for the GT3 AM category, and I think that means he is doubled up in that category, or it might have been McQuarrie. It's difficult, but I believe it was McGlinskey who won race 1, and he has also won race 2. But a fantastic race, James, all the way through. We had some big incidents, we had some good racing, but in the end, Dan Kirby, dominant drive.
Yeah, absolutely. He just went out. It was like being on a Sunday drive when he hit your mates. You know, he was just jobs are good and jobs done, and that was the end of it. So we should be able to bring you up the results on your screen as they are right now.
Yeah, there we go. Dan Kirby wins the race. Kyle Vaser picks up a very good P2 himself. Mike Bell, 3rd. Brian Hall in 4th. Showing a very, very consistent, good top 4. Jerry Chen, George Angelidis and Scar Pope, 5th, 6th and 7th, but they were 1st, 2nd and 3rd in the AM category. Alec King in 8th. That strategy not really working out for him. Don Hunter and Norm Graff rounding out that top 10. We look back to Lanny Hall, Gilles Lalonde and Jerry Hamilton, the top 13 drivers. And then we have Matthias Santos, who won that GT3 category. JT Tammy 2nd and Matthew Overton 3rd with Eugene Mazel. We saw him losing out on the podium right at the end. He finishes P4 in class, 17th overall, with Michael Lock, Johnny Gutierrez and Paul Ibbotson in the top 20. We look further back, James Walker and Ross Smith in the top 22. Ross Smith, I believe that is a top 10 finish then, recovering well in the GT3 category, with Eric Jacobs, Adrian Rice and Max Sunthernlap in the top 25. John Uyan, Stuart Barge, Vinicius Gonçalves in the top 28, with Josh Mzglinski winning in the GT3 AM category. David Anderson as well, finishing in the top 30. As we look back for Stephen Miller and Alexander McQuarrie in the top 32. John Maher, 33rd, with James Boders and Alan Holden in the top 36. And then we have our non-finishers. Eliseo Neto, of course, he won at Daytona. Wasn't able to repeat the feat. He's 37th, I should say, along with a lot of other DNF drivers, including Tom Nutella, Stacey Scotts, and a couple more. There we go. Ryan Reyes, Ben Kesby, and Wayne Galvin in the top 40. But, of course, they never checkered flag.
Hey, guys. I think that was an exciting race. Are you ready for Daniel?
Oh, hello, Matt. Blimey. Tell that Matthew over, just come jumping in there. How are you, Matt?
I'm doing good. You all set for the winners to come in for a quick talk?
We've just finished off the results there, buddy.
All right.
So that's all right. No worries. You're here now, shall we say? So, yeah, we can start off with Dan in the booth. That would be amazing.
I'll drag him in. Hey, Daniel.
There you go, Dara. Dan's in the booth for you.
Oh, hello, Dan. I didn't want to take over from you if you were expected to take over, James, but there we go. Dan, I mean, fantastic result from you again. You won at Daytona, you're winning here at Sebring, a dominant drive. I mean, 40 seconds nearly was the gap. We were talking about it nearly looking like it could be a minute at times. I mean, it was just a comfortable drive for you, really, wasn't it?
I guess the racing wise, yeah, because Alec had a carryover penalty from Daytona, so there wasn't really anybody to race against, but comfortable, no, because this track is ridiculously bumpy. The Asada has like 2x4s for suspension, so it's just bouncing around the whole place.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about it in the race that this track, it's very specific in that way, isn't it? The bounces that you don't really get anywhere else. I mean, is it a challenge that you felt endangered the car in some ways? Did you feel like you might lose the rear end at points?
Yeah, especially into turn 7, the hairpin. There's a lot of bumps in the braking zone, and you can pretty easily lose the back end of the car if you're not really careful into that one. The bumps just like chuck the rear end of the car around everywhere.
Yeah, it's difficult. But I mean, looking forward, I mean, the next 2 rounds, Laguna Seca and Long Beach, very, very different tracks and very different challenges. Are they races that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I love Laguna Seca. It's a really sweet track. It's gonna be really, really interesting to drive these cars there. Especially like down the corkscrew and stuff. It's gonna be pretty nutty in hypercars.
Yeah, and I think if we start to see some of the hypercars lap the GT3s trying to go through the corkscrew, it could get very, very interesting.
Yeah.
But James, was there anything you wanted to ask Dan yourself?
No, I'm good, Dan. It was just another dominant drive, wasn't it? It was like being out on a Sunday drive with your grandma sat next to you, to be fair, when you're finishing 42 seconds out in front.
Yeah, it went pretty good. A good practice for Saturday.
Oh, Dan, you are so modest. It drives me crazy. Aren't racing drivers supposed to be like this arrogant machine that just goes, yeah, I was good today, everybody else was rubbish? Dan comes in, he's like, yeah, I was all right. You know, you're so chilled, Dan. You drive me crazy, buddy. But well done, mate. I think you've done an amazing job. So there we go. But I suppose the only question we've got left is there anyone you want to shout out before we let you go? No?
I can't think of anything right now.
All right, bud. Right.
All right. I'll bring Josh in for you then.
Cheers.
Josh or
Thank
Sherry?
you.
Sherry, actually. Yeah.
Take care, mate. Well, there you go, Dara. Have a chat. Let's bring Josh in and we can have a chat with Josh. There you go, Josh. Welcome in.
How's it going? How's it going?
I'm good,
Well,
mate.
Josh, I mean, you yourself, Josh, I mean, a difficult race, wasn't it, at points? I mean, you were getting involved towards the end in that battle with the pros. You didn't really have much battling to do for the lead in your class, but I mean, was it a fun race overall? Sebring, difficult challenge?
Yeah, definitely difficult for sure. I think I got bumped a bit towards the beginning of the race, which took me out of the fight at the beginning. But honestly, I got really lucky with the strategy and fuel because I actually ran out of fuel on the last lap. But I think I was ahead of Kirby over the finish line, and something with the laps had me finish first still. So I got blessed for sure by the lapping.
Yeah, so by virtue of the fact that everyone else behind you was lapped one extra time, you were just able to like cross the line and claim. That's fantastic. But I
Yeah.
mean, building on your championship challenge, it's always good to pick up the points early on. I mean, it's a long season, isn't it? But I mean, are you pleased to have that good momentum early on in the championship to try and roll on towards Laguna Seca, Long Beach?
Oh, absolutely. Hopefully I can stick with every race and it's good to get the points early on, especially if I got to miss a few races. But yeah, hopefully it'll just make my championship a little easier, holding that top spot. But we'll see how the season goes. As you said, it is a long season, so.
And I mean, just generally, it's just an interesting challenge. I mean, you said you might not attend some of the races, but if you can attend Long Beach, Laguna Seca, are they particularly tracks you're looking forward to? Because, of course, Long Beach, the walls are closed. It's going to be interesting with the hypercars. And Laguna Seca, I mean, we were talking about it with Dan just then. Over the corkscrew, if we see some lapping, that could get interesting.
Yeah, I think Long Beach will be tricky, but definitely fun. I think Long Beach is kind of like Sebring today, where you pretty much just have to survive, and you'll hopefully get a good result. But Laguna Seca is always a fun circuit, and hopefully I'll be strong there as well.
Is there anybody you want to shout out, Josh, before we let you go?
Shout out to the King family and Shade Tree Motorsports, and yeah, all the Lambras for holding it down and sticking together with the teamwork.
Well, good job, Josh. Well done to you, buddy. Look forward to seeing how you get on next time if we don't make it. But have a good one, mate, and we'll look forward to catching up with you soon.
All right, thank you very much. You guys have a good one as well.
Take care. Next up, you're going to speak to Dara, Jerry Chen, the Hypercar Am winner.
Hello.
Jerry. Yeah, well done, Jerry. Fantastic win for you. I mean, you were really fighting up there with some of the pro guys for quite a lot of that race. You had that buffer at the start where I think you were the only hypercar AM car in the top 5. So you were really doing well. Does that give you a big momentum boost and big confidence boost through the races coming up?
Yeah, I had a good battle with Wayne Galvan. I think it was the other AM that was right behind me, but I think he had a disconnect. So after that, I had a big cushion to George, and I just kind of took it easy. Didn't take any risks in traffic. So yeah, it was a good race.
I mean, you touched on it. I mean, was it enjoyable? GT3s, we had a lot of collisions between the hypercars and the GT3s lapping. I mean, did you find it comfortable? Were you nervy about lapping some of the GT3s?
A couple cars were a little bit sketchy riding the middle of the road, but for the most part, I had about a 10-second buffer to George, so I could be patient and wait. And most of the times, I just get the cars on the exit. So, but I did come up. I don't know. I think it was the second stint going into the hairpin. There were a bunch of GT3s and a hypercar in front, and they all crashed. So that was a little hairy. I had to crawl through there. There was just carbon fiber all over the hairpin. But yeah, it was fine. I had a little bit of buffer to George, so I took it easy with the traffic. I didn't have any incidents.
Yeah, you were one of the lucky ones that made it through. Really, it was a very big incident. That I think, yeah, James. I mean, it was probably the biggest of the evening, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In that regard. But Jerry, looking forward, we've mentioned it with the other two, Laguna Seca, Long Beach, they're upcoming, 2 very different circuits to each other and to Sebring. I mean, are they tracks that you're looking forward to racing on?
Yeah, Laguna should be suited for the 963. Long Beach, I don't know. It's kind of tight, and there's a lot of very, very slow corners, so the Acuras will have a little bit more straight line power probably, but yeah, I wanted to take advantage. Sebring is pretty bumpy, so 963 is really, really compliant over the bumps. So I wanted to get my points on George now while I can.
And that's the point we were talking about, wasn't it, James? That you want the points early on, and then you can build on it from there. But I mean, well done, Jerry. Anybody want to shout out before we let you go?
My teammate Alec was flying. Even he had to do a little bit of a penalty at the beginning, but he was flying through the field, and then I think he ran out of gas on the last lap. So he had to crawl to the line. But, yeah. No, he was absolutely flying out there. So he had to do a penalty, and I think he got sent to the way back to the end of the pack, and he somehow made it all the way back up to like top 5 somehow. Smoking. Alec was
fantastic race from him.
Yep.
Well done, Jerry. Good luck for the future races, and we'll hopefully speak to you in the next few rounds.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
And last but not least is Mateus Santos, ready for you if he's here currently.
He is now. But he's muted.
Mm.
No, I'm here. I'm
There we
here.
go. Oh, hello then. Matthias,
Hello.
another good win for you, really, in that race. You were very comfortable through that race. I mean, towards the end, you had a massive gap. I mean, did it feel comfortable towards the end? I know there were constantly hypercars lapping you, but were you able to relax a bit towards the end of the race?
Yeah, the race was a very nice race. At the start of the race, like Elisio had a much better pace than me, so I was just trying to maintain the pace, you know. And I in the race I knew that I was like 1 second faster of the others GT, so I just tried to keep the pace. And when I saw like at the first stop, I was 15, 20 seconds ahead of the third place. So I was very comfortable. And in the middle of the race, I think Elisio just went off and crashed the car. So I became the leader. And I think it was pretty much comfortable. Like I made my second stop just to put some fuel on the car. And yeah, the other GTs needed to refuel. So I think like I did the 36 laps, and the other GTs just did 35 because the leader didn't pass me, and he did pass them. So yeah, was a really nice race. I was hoping to be able to race on the Saturday's race here in Sebring too, but unfortunately I didn't did the full stint on the practice, so I won't be able to race. But yeah, I'll be cheering in the live for Elisio and his teammates. I think it will be a very good race. Thank you.
Yeah. It's going to be exciting, I think, all the way through. But, I mean, for you personally, in this series, does this give you a good confidence boost towards Laguna Seca and Long Beach that we have coming up? And are you confident for those races?
Yeah, these next races, the track are really difficult. Like this race was already a really physical one. I finished like really tired, and these two next races are much worse to race. Like they're very harder. They're harder than this one. So yeah, I think we needed to have a little bit of luck and try to keep the pace, build a good setup of the car, and yeah, try to keep in the top 3 of the GTs.
Definitely. But we're going to wish you the best of luck. We'll hope to speak to you again after the next race. Is there anybody you want to shout out before we let you go and have some rest after that race?
Just thank you for my team, C Square Racing. They are always watching the races. They are always cheering, and Elisio too, because Elisio made our setups. I was racing with the same setup of the car Elisio, so very much thanks for him. And that's it. Thank you, man.
Thanks, Matthias. Well done. Congratulations on the win, and hopefully we'll speak to you again soon. But James, I mean, what a race that was overall. Just all 4 classes, they had some good winners. We've got some good battles all the way through, and it really does set up some great races at Laguna Seca and Long Beach.
It definitely does, and I think it's always great racing. I want. I think I'm worried about to see how Laguna's going to work out. Too wide through the corkscrew. Yeah, that's not going to be a comfortable one for some of them. But look, let's see how they all do. These are all expert drivers, but yeah, I think we've got some good tracks coming forward. And of course, don't forget we're back here on Saturday for the VWSC. Yeah, the Modern Series is here as well on Saturday, so don't forget that one.
Yeah, you'll want to be tuning in on the CMS YouTube and, of course, the JPB YouTube for that one, because it's going to be a very exciting race. And, of course, in the world of the VWSC, of course, we've got the historic races coming up in the near future before we get to our next round in the NRAS series, which I'm very much looking forward to. Our next couple of rounds are going to be exciting. Laguna Seca and Long Beach, you're not going to want to miss them. But from us here at Sebring, from myself, Darren Thacker, and from James Parfitt alongside me, we hope you enjoyed the racing action that we very much did around Sebring, and we will see you when the NRAS series returns next time out in a few weeks' time.